Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy Edit. Today's video, I'm bringing you guys some safe players to draft in your 2021 fantasy football leagues. Now, obviously, you're not going to win your league going with all safe players. You obviously have to do a bit of sprinkling of those high upside players, but these are just some of the safest players that I wanted to talk about in this video. Is it all of them? No, there's obviously a long list of them, but I want to talk about some guys going from the early to mid rounds of your 2021 fantasy drafts that I feel like are ultra safe and hopefully will be bust proof. So, before we get into it, I want to ask if at any point inside this video you end up enjoying, you end up having a great time, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you are new. I post content every single day talking about fantasy football, the NFL draft, as well as just the NFL as a whole. And if you are not new, you've been watching for a while or a short amount of time, please make sure to hit that like button down below. It really helps me out a ton. So, we'll begin with Stefan Diggs, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, currently based on Underdog's ADP, which is a little more accurate than the other ADP I was looking at. ADP's average draft position is 15.1, so he's an early second round pick based off of current ADP. Underdog is a best ball website. That's how they compile all of this data. Best ball is a league pretty much where you just set it and forget it. You draft the 18 rounds that you have, and then the computer just puts in all of your best players every single week. Then at the end of the season, you come back and collect the cash from doing it. So, Underdog, I am sponsored by them, so if you guys want to sign up there, you don't have to. Obviously, the link will be down below in the description. So, Stefan Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. Now, going into last year, I wasn't super on board with Stefan Diggs. Now, looking back, it was kind of foolish, right? I thought, oh, maybe Josh Allen and him won't have this great connection because of COVID. What a stupid fucking thing to think, right? Looking back, how dumb was I? How dumb were all the people kind of fading these guys going to new teams? Same thing happened with Deandre Hopkins. A lot of people, including myself, were kind of nervous about drafting Deandre Hopkins, but they end up just smacking every single defense around. So I was wrong on Diggs last year. I was wrong for just dumb reasons. Like I said, I like Stefan Diggs. I always have. I just thought he wouldn't be able to do it year one or play super good at the beginning, and I was just wrong. This guy was literally consistent all season long, playing in 16 games. Diggs finished as wide receiver 3 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard formats, averaging 20.5 PPR points per game, 16.6 half PPR points per game, and 12.6 standard points per game, meaning on a points per game basis, he was wide receiver 3 in full and half PPR, and wide receiver number 4 in standard. Now, Stefan Diggs was literally the best wide receiver, in my opinion, in the NFL last year. Maybe Adams was better, but in all the big categories, this guy was completely dominant. 168 targets, 10.5 per game, number 1 at wide receiver. His total receptions, 127, 7.9 per game, number 1 at wide receiver. His receiving yards, 1,535, 95.9 per game, number 1 at wide receiver. The only reason why he wasn't the number 1 guy at the end of the season is because he only scored 8 touchdowns. Only 8. 8 is such a high number, and that was 13th most at wide receiver. So just imagine if Stefan Diggs maybe scored 10 touchdowns. He may have finished even higher. I mean, this guy was just so consistent week in and week out. And what's different about Diggs' situation from 2020 to 2021? Nothing. They're probably not going to draft another wide receiver that would even somewhat scare Stefan Diggs. Even if they do, doesn't fucking matter because Diggs is still going to get 1 million targets. If they draft a running back, doesn't matter. Diggs is still going to get 1 million targets. The defense will likely be either slightly better or just about the same. And it won't matter at all for Stefan Diggs. Diggs is one of the most dominant wide receivers in the NFL. On one of the most high-octane offenses in the Buffalo Bills in the NFL, it's a no-brainer. This guy had 29.2% target share of that offense, third most at the wide receiver position. 29.2%. That means like 30% of the time that the ball is given to someone on the Bills, his name is Stefan Diggs. That's insane. And his ADOT wasn't even super high. It was 10.2, 56th highest at the wide receiver position. So he wasn't even getting all these crazy receiving yards from being just a super deep down the field threat. He was getting these slants, getting these other routes, and he's busting them off. Or even if he's not busting them off, he's getting so many targets every single game that it doesn't matter. Now I understand, oh, Nick, he's going to regress. Even if he regresses and he's your second round pick, you are going to be so happy with Diggs being your wide receiver 1. Because the Bills are going to be good. He's going to be good. And every single week, he's going to be getting you like 7 receptions. Maybe even more. Maybe he goes to 8 or 9. He's just ultra safe in my opinion. I feel like his situation is so good to even think about avoiding this guy. I just don't see it at all why anyone would dislike Stefan Diggs. Now down below, let me know if you dislike Stefan Diggs. If you think this guy's a garbage can, I would assume no one dislikes him. But again, to me, it's kind of just a no-brainer. One of the better wide receivers on one of the better teams in the AFC. Makes for a pretty solid pairing with one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So, to me, again, it is a no-brainer when it comes to Stefan Diggs. Now, someone who we might need to take a little bit deeper of a dive into. We got a guy going ahead of Stefan Diggs. Running back Cam Akers, 11.8 ADP on Underdog. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think in most leagues that's where he's going to end up going. I think he's more of a second-round pick compared to a first-round pick. Underdog, again, the people drafting right now might be a little bit sharp like that knife that O.J. Simpson used. That's a joke, obviously. O.J. never killed anyone. So with that said, Cam Akers, I doubt he's going to be a first-round pick. I really doubt it because I think that while all the people playing now who are big fantasy guys, they're not the public. The public there's no sexiness about the name Cam Akers just yet. He has not proven himself as a name, and I think once he becomes that name, probably after this season, then he's going to go this high. But again, the ADP is obviously accurate because it's from the website, but it's a lot more sharper drafters on there based on right now. He was the second-round pick last season to the LA Rams, 5'10", 217 pounds, out of Florida State, almost 22 years old. Now, his measurables, workout-wise, are nothing super special. 86th percentile 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.47, 108.7 speed score, 90th percentile, 66th percentile burst score, and 52nd percentile bench press. But frankly, just throw the fucking metrics directly out the window because Cam Akers is a ball player. He's a baller on one of the best teams in the NFC with the addition of Stefan Diggs. Last year, he played in 13 games, but really only started 3 games and didn't get the work that he kind of deserved, right? He went into a team that had a running back by committee. It was a 3-headed backfield. It was the menage a trois, the 3-way backfield. And at the beginning, he was getting Eiffel Towered by Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson until week 12 when it all turned, his whole world turned upside down like the Fresh Prince of goddamn Bel-Air. In 13 games, this man with 3 starts finishes running back 45 in PPR, 43.5 PPR, and 42 in standard, averaging 7.8 PPR points per game, 7.4 standard or half PPR points per game, and 7 standard points per game. On a points per game basis, he was running back 53 in PPR, 49.5 PPR, and 44 in standard. So nothing sexy about those numbers, right? But like I talked about, you have to look at his season and basically split it in half. You want to look at weeks 12 to 17 and then the weeks before that, obviously, to figure out what really happened. So week 12 to 17, when he was really the guy, he was averaging 13.6 half PPR points per game. The weeks before that, the 6 games before that, 5.05 half PPR points per game. So obviously a big increase when he's given more of the work. Who would have guessed? 14.4 PPR points per game towards the end of the season, those final 5 games, 5.3 before that. 12.8 standard points per game versus 4.8 before that. It's not hard to tell that when you give Cam Akers more work, he's going to perform. Akers went from 8.33 rushing attempts per game to 19. So it should be a no-brainer that all the other numbers went up. His rushing yards went from 33.5 to 84.8 per game. He didn't score a single touchdown in the first 6 games. 0.4 per game in the final 5 games he played. His receptions also went up. So every single number went up when you gave him more work. He's going into the 2021 NFL season as the guy for the LA Rams. So I'm not too sure what else I need to sell you on about Cam Akers. He's going to be the guy on a very solid offense with a good defense, so they're going to be able to run the rock later in the game to get Cam Akers more points. Darrell Henderson will without a doubt be involved, but it won't be as much as early on in the season, and I believe we're to see a lot of what we saw in Cam Akers down the stretch and in the playoffs in 2021. Next up here, we got my main man, Adam Thielen. Now, Adam Thielen has to be the most unsexy name on this list. Why? Because he's not even the alpha wide receiver on his team. Justin Jefferson is, but he still went out and performed. Justin Jefferson was skull-fucking defenses, and this guy was behind him, you know, getting the sloppy seconds, still skull-fucking the defense. Wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings, played in 15 games last season, finishing as wide receiver 10 in PPR, 8.5 PPR, and wide receiver number 7 in standard leagues with 16.9 PPR points per game, 14.5 half PPR points per game, and 12 standard points per game. On a points per game basis, he was wide receiver 11 in PPR, 7.5 PPR, and 7 in standard leagues. And he's currently coming off the board, the latest of all these guys, 45.2. 45.2. And he was a top 12 wide receiver last year. Now, I understand people don't love Kirk Cousins because he's just not that great, right? Kirk Cousins, when you're thinking about, oh, an amazing quarterback in the NFL, you don't think about Kirk Cousins. But he is not a bad player. He's just not amazing. But that still gets it done in Minnesota for the 6'3", 200-pound undrafted wide receiver who's now getting up there in age. 30 years old, this old man, Adam Thielen. Last season, this guy put up 108 targets, 27th most at wide receiver, 74 receptions, 23rd most at wide receiver, for a grand total of 925 receiving yards, and 14 total touchdowns, third most at wide receiver. So his numbers were carried a little bit by the touchdown total, but I still view him as a very safe wide receiver, too, for your fantasy roster. You're not having to draft him as a top 12 wide receiver, and in my opinion, the chance he finishes as a top 12 guy are pretty high based upon how good I think the Vikings offense should be in 2021. They should basically be a repeat of 2020, and maybe even slightly better. It seems like Kirk Cousins will be the quarterback yet again for this team. Now, I understand you might be a little bit scared based upon his total touchdowns, but with the amount of targets I feel he is going to get, and with the amount of yards I feel like he's going to get, I think those are all going to increase while the touchdowns go down, and you end up with a very safe play in Adam Thielen for your 2021 fantasy football roster. Am I super in love with Adam Thielen? No, because he's just a safe guy. He doesn't really scream top 5 upside, but I do think there's a chance that he finishes as a top 12 wide receiver yet again in 2021. Down below, let me know what you guys think about Mr. Adam Thielen. If you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Next guy up here, we got my main man, Aaron Jones, running back of the Green Bay Packers. Now, his underdog ADP is 8.7, but I've done a couple of drafts on underdog, and I've never seen him go that high. Never seen him go that high. He's more of a second-round pick, and I smash Hulk-style, Khabib-style pick this man in the second round. Everyone doubted him going into last year. They told me, Nick, Aaron Jones can't put up the same amount of touchdowns, which he didn't, but he still finished very high. Nick, he can't do this again. And what happened? What happened? Aaron Jones wins the fucking MVP. And not Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers wins MVP. And Aaron Jones still plays amazing. Man's 5'9". We're the same height. Actually, I'm 5'10", so I'm 1 inch taller than you, Aaron Jones. 26.4 years old, 208 pounds. Guy got his bag this summer, and he's ready to get to work again. He got paid, I guess not in the summer, obviously. In the winter, he got his money, and he's ready to roll. Finished as running back 5 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard formats, playing in 14 games, averaging 18.5 PPR points per game, 16.8 half PPR points per game, and 15.1 standard points per game, meaning on a points per game basis, running back 6 in PPR, 6 in half PPR, and number 5 in standard leagues. What could go wrong with Aaron Jones? Injury, knock on wood. You obviously hope that doesn't happen, but he doesn't have an injury history. All he is a safe running back that is, again, probably going to get discredited. Because it seems like Aaron Jones is not a household name yet for some fucking reason. Not everyone's in love with Aaron Jones, even though this guy is putting up big numbers in the receiving game as well. So, last season, he rushed the ball 201 times, 10th most at running back, for 1,104 rushing yards, 4th most at running back. As well as receiving 62 targets, 9th most at running back, for 46 receptions, 12th most at running back, and 347 receiving yards, 13th most at running back, for 11 total touchdowns, 7th most at running back. What's there to not like about Aaron Jones? Sure, some of his offensive line left, but the offensive line's fine. The team is probably going to be pretty much identical on offense, and they're going to still run the ball. And Aaron Jones is one of the better running backs in the league. From an efficiency standpoint, his true yards per carry, 5th most at running back. Yards per touch, 5.9, 4th most at running back. Breakaway runs, 8, 12th most at running back. Juke rate, 22.3, 25th most at running back. Sure, he's not going to juke the shit out of you, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Yards created, 354, 9th most at running back. Dominator rating, 22.7%, 18th most at running back. This guy is a menace to defenses, and he's going to do it again. I understand there's probably not many people slandering Aaron Jones, but in your league, when you see this guy in the second round, all you got to do is close your eyes and click draft. I understand, again, his ADP, not in the second round, but I have never seen him being picked in the first round in all of the drafts I've done thus far in the offseason. Final player, we've got Old Reliable from SpongeBob. That was the name I was looking for. Julio Jones, wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons, 6'3", 220 pounds, 32.2 years old. I understand Julio's getting old and he got hurt last year, but this guy is the definition of safety. You could put this man on the Trojan condom commercial and it would make me buy even more. I love Julio Jones. Look, the guy finished low last year, obviously, because he only played in 9 games. Wide receiver 52 in PPR, 53.5 PPR, and 52 in standard. But on a points per game basis, 16.2 PPR points per game, 13.4 half PPR points per game, and 10.6 standard points per game. Meaning, he was wide receiver 14 in points per game PPR, 13 half PPR, and 12 in standard. Sure, he's old, but he's still going to get it done. No matter how old this motherfucker gets, he's still going to get it done. He's coming off the board at pick 42.7. He is going so late, and he's probably going to be a top 10 wide receiver. I like him even more than I like Adam Thielen. Sure, with Adam Thielen, there's not as much injury history from last year, but there was from the year before with Thielen. To me, it just seems like an easy case of a guy that you draft, and you're going to feel very happy with. His numbers from last year, again, aren't amazing because he got hurt. He had 68 targets, one off of being very nice, 51 receptions, a grand total of 771 receiving yards, and 3 total touchdowns. The biggest knock on Julio is that this man cannot score. He gets to first base, second base, third base, and he can't get all the way into the punani. But at the end of the day, he's still getting some head, and he's going to help out your fantasy football roster. If you guys understood that reference, obviously everyone does. We're not fucking 12 years old here. Even though I look like I'm 12, but I'm 21. People always ask in the comment section, not always ask, there are always people who ask, Nick, how old are you? I'm 21, I'm almost 22, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Shout out to Tay Swizzle. So again, with Julio, it's just a no-brainer. Sure, he had a down year, but if you're drafting him in like the 3rd, 4th round, top 12, top 5 is potential for Julio Jones. It's a perennial great wide receiver. So thank you guys all so much for watching this video. Again, nothing super special in this video. I just talked about a bunch of players that I liked. Title it the safest players to draft in fantasy football in 21. Let me know your guys' safety picks. Your guys that you're looking for in your 2021 fantasy football drafts. Tomorrow's video should be a banger as well. I love you guys all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. Stay safe as always. Good boy.